The long-awaited gubernatorial debate between incumbent Governor Bryan Jr. and Senator Vialet was a 90-minute affair that was laced with policy questions about the future trajectory of the U.S. Virgin Islands. The event was a verbal battle between a man who, along with running mate Senator Janelle Sorrow, wants to implement plans that he says will improve the quality of life for Virgin Islanders, and the incumbent who says he wants to continue the work that he and his lieutenant Tregenza Roach started almost 4 years ago. Thousands of online viewers were tuned in to watch Thursday night's debate, jointly hosted by the Virgin Islands Consortium and WTJX. The event was filmed at WTJX Studios on St. Croix and moderated by consortium publisher Ernest Gilbert. The small studio audience and the large online viewership watched the two men and evaluated their demeanors, Vialet remaining calm yet pointed in his comments, while Bryan was more animated and expansive. In the final debate before the November 8th general election, the two men tussled over healthcare, the future of education, the diversification of the economy, mental illness, and crime, among other topics currently capturing the attention of residents. One such topic was the opening of GFL North, and the pair traded barbs on the issue.
The problem is not the pipeline, Senator. The problem is that you force it down the people's throat without a discussion. You can't just take things and move them through the legislature without asking and letting the public participate with their concerns. And when you talk about moving things forward, if it takes you 4 years to write 12 pages of paper and get them passed, imagine how long it will take you to build a hospital.
He's worrying about building a hospital and he can't open GFL North. 5 years. You can't open GFL North, and you're going to worry about the ability of this good senator and future governor to open a hospital? There needs to be a sense of urgency. The governor lacks a sense of urgency for those quality of life issues that matter the most. Education, healthcare, there's no sense of urgency. There's no discussion. Ask the governor, when will GFL North open? He has said it about 5 different dates. What is the new date?
There was substantial discussion on the timeline of the GFL North project, with Bryan admitting that the executive team had, quote, run into a lot of problems with the facility over the past 4 years, since provisions for furnishings and equipment were not budgeted for.
The MAP administration had never built a hospital before. And just when we were about to hook it up, we learned that if we did, it would whole entire health care, the whole hospital would fail. So what did? We erred on the side of caution, and we're making sure that everything is ready in that hospital before we put it into use. We have already fast-tracked the planning of the new hospital and have put in place all of the drawings and everything that are needed to do that. We also inherited a position by the MAP administration to replace both of our hospitals. So we had to go back and battle with FEMA in order to get the money to build the new hospitals.
Despite the delay with FEMA, Bryan insisted that his team had fast-tracked the planning of the new hospital. Vialet, however, pushed back at that assessment, pointing out that the GFL North was already completed with modular structures in place when the governor was sworn into office in 2018.
The FFEs languished in the territorial board for over a year before they made a decision as to be able to execute that contract to purchase the FFEs for the hospital, for the GFL North. The hospital has been furnished over a year and a half now, and still it sits closed because of the lack of a maintenance building. 1 year and 10 months ago, we had a meeting with the governor in which we asked as to whether or not there was a need for monies from the legislature to expedite the opening of GFL North, and the answer was, I got it under control. 1 year, 10 months later, we're still hearing excuses as to when it's going to open, despite the fact that in the state of the territory, the governor promised that it was going to open during the summer. We did have cash. And you can know that we had cash because we were just able to fund $40 million for retroactive monies. And that is coming from the general fund. So it wasn't an issue of cash. It's an issue of priority. Those monies should have been earmarked for GFL North from 1 year, 10 months ago. The board, the territorial board, erred dramatically. There's no way that you can construct GFL North with FFEs and everything else and you don't pay attention to the water, hook up the oxygen, the maintenance building to be able to open the facility.
Another hot-button topic was the state of education in the territory. Governor Bryan was asked how he planned to retain teachers who had been leaving the territory by the hundreds to work abroad because of the state of school plans, school violence, and inadequate remuneration. Bryan spoke of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it had impacted learning, and how his team sprang into action to prepare virtual instruction in record time. He also referenced the former MAP administration, as he did more than once throughout the debate, for what he said were failures of the past that his administration had to correct.
For 2 years, we struggled with the education system that you said was already damaged. When we inherited the system, we thought we were going to get modulars that work. What we got are modulars that were actually poisoning the students. The problem with teachers is one that persists, but we have the lowest amount of enrollment in history. In the last maybe 20 years, we only have 8,000 students. We are constantly complaining, and I think it's a message about having teachers, but when you go to the schools and visit them like I do, there's only 18 students in a class, as compared to when I went to school when there were 30 students in a class.
Education was also the focus of Bryan's personal question to Senator Vialet.
Why have you not been a champion for our students and for the education system and for the teachers by chairing the education committee and leading legislation that will lead us into a better education system that you constantly criticize now?
You don't have to be the chair of the education committee in order to move legislation. If you look at my record on education, I have offered numerous bills to make sure that we're able to improve the system. Monies for repair and maintenance, monies for the University of the Virgin Islands to start the first Bachelor of Science in Nursing, monies for UVI to start the Masters in Social Work, monies for the Agriculture Program, a new program to be able to get surveyors and appraisers through UVI cell, monies to start academically talented programs in every single school. I have championed education from the day that I have been in the Senate and have been working hard on a regular basis to make sure that the needs of education are met.
Vialet, who spent about 2 decades as an educator before his Senate career, contended that he did not need to be the chair of the committee in order to move legislation that made meaningful change, and proceeded to rattle off a list of initiatives to boost the education sector that he had spearheaded. When it was Senator Vialet's turn to pose a question of his own, he grilled the governor over no-bid contracts that he accused him of providing to his friends and colleagues.
He has produced none of these contracts that I'm giving to my friends and my family. The only justification for a no-bid contract is an emergency, and that's what we had in COVID. I don't know what no-bid contract you're talking about, Senator, but if you were serious about no-bid contracts, and as a senator, what legislation have you put forth to make sure that this type of stuff doesn't happen? You've been there for 8 years. I keep saying your roommate. But your best friends. Your running mate. Your running mate has been there for 6, and you guys have not produced any legislation to stop any of this so-called corruption that you're always referring to.
What you have done cleverly is to place certain contracts under the Public Finance Authority where there is no scrutiny. What you have done is to have an overall entity and then have some contracts under that entity to give to your friends. What you have done is determined just recently that TSG could get a sole source contract for the Department of Finance to perform duties that are already being performed by the department. What you have done is to try to give them a contract to manage the Envision program under Whittle Bryan, and they were the subcontractor that was rejected twice by the board. That's what you have done. So if you want to be specific, I can.
Thank you. Governor, you could respond to that in one of your other questions.
It's ludicrous. I don't need to respond to that.
Both men also discussed the high levels of crime, with each offering proposals on how to reduce it.
I think that the crime problem is a two-pronged issue. One is you have to be able to arrest the present criminal population. But the second is you have to make sure that you don't have a next group of individuals that are waiting to take their place. So we have to look at those individuals who have the tendency to become criminals by being able to create wraparound services for those young individuals who have deep-rooted issues, who need some help in terms of conflict resolution, anger management, who are acting out in school on a regular basis, who are in the youth rehab center and not receiving any services. We got to take care of them so that they don't become the next generation of criminals. We have to create a gang interdiction unit that is going to go and infiltrate and discuss to be able to stop the killings that are taking place. There's a lot that we could do to change what is going on, but the present trajectory isn't dealing with the issues. The present trajectory has the governor silent.
Silent? Silent, you and Senator Serow sat there, and when MAP administration, the violence had gotten so bad, a young girl where they assassinate up by Prophet, all that shootout by Central, the hundreds of bullets that they put in Red Brick terrorizing people during the MAP administration. What did you do, Senator? What did your running mate do? What we have done is we've put in 164 new cameras. There were no cameras working when we came into office. We're doing things like using technology to fight crime by putting in new knock centers where we can monitor the movement of traffic and where these criminals are escaping to. We have picked up, and contrary to belief, crime is actually on a downward trend. We have the lowest amount of murders in almost 20 years that we're trending now. In St. Thomas, we've only had 7 murders to date, and in St. Croix, 21.
In their closing statements, the debaters urged the electorate to vote for them as the better choice to lead the territory. The senator pushed the Vialet team as the best choice for improving the quality of life for Virgin Islanders, while Bryan spoke of his Brian Roach team's achievements over the past 3.5 years in government and asked for the opportunity to do more.